What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back with another preview video. This is round 5. This will actually be the final game of round 5, Wales versus France. This will be basically almost potentially deciding who's going to win the Six Nations. There could even be the opportunity for a Grand Slam. Although this is the last game that's going to be happening on the weekend, these are the first teams to have been announced. So I'm going to end up doing these out of order. Feels a little bit weird. As always, I'll put a game on in the background while we go through the actual teams that have been announced. I'll be playing as my created Wales team because it's ranked slightly less than the France team. Give it a bit more of an interesting game in the background. So let's crack on with this game and talk about these teams. Alrighty, Dan Biggar is gonna get us kicked off and underway. Well, seeing as we are playing as Wales, let's start off talking about the Wales team. I've had an interesting Six Nations. I don't think a lot of people before this Six Nations begun would have had Wales on to potentially be getting a Grand Slam in this Six Nations. They did not have a good Six Nations last year. They had a pretty average Autumn Nations Cup in the autumn. So it's going to be interesting to see how they were going to get on in this Six Nations. I had them pegged to end up being 4th, but I'm very happy to say they are doing much better than my expectations gave them granted for. They had a couple of red cards in their first couple of games that allowed them to get through those ones. They stepped up their game in the England game. They played much better in that one, and last week playing Italy was the first time I got to really sit back and just enjoy watching a game of rugby from Wales. Their team really getting into its own now. Everyone knows their positions, set plays being used. The wingers seem to just be enjoying themselves. Rhys Zammit ran 170 metres down the pitch from an interception to get a great try. Josh Adams had his own tries. He had one disallowed. Wales just seemed to be all over that game. It's probably the best game I've seen from Wales. I mean, obviously, Italy are struggling at the minute, so that we were always expecting the Wales score to be quite high. What did it end on in the end? I think it was like 41 points difference or something, but if their tries had been allowed and there weren't forward passes and stuff, they were on for scoring a good 70 in that game. So Wales are definitely on the up and up. Moving into this game, France, this could be the toughest game of the tournament for them. France are still looking strong in the attacking department anyway. They faltered off against that England team. But seeing as we're talking about the Wales team, let's chuck on screen the team announced for this game. And as we've come to expect from Pivac now, we can't expect too many changes in this team. He's pretty happy with his setup. So we'll start off in the front row. Wyn Jones, Ken Owens and Tom Francis, who've all played really well through the tournament. Ken Owens, of course, getting 2 tries in that Italy game. It was such a shame we didn't get to see him get a hat-trick. I thought he was on for it. If they kept him on a little bit longer, get another driving maul going, thought it was coming, but they've all been really exceptional through this. I think this Wales front row is the best we've seen it in a long, long time, so they'll definitely be putting in the shift against France. Moving on to the locks, Adam Beard's going to take back over at number 4 instead of Corey Hill. Corey Hill didn't have a terrible game against Italy. There were a couple of penalties going against him, and of course it then shifts off that Jake Ball got his 50th cap in the last game, so I was assuming he wasn't going to play this game. So Adam Beard will retain that number 4 shirt again. Alan Wyn Jones, of course, we expect to be in 5. We only got to see him for about 50 minutes last game. Was to be expected. They want to keep him safe. They want to keep that man in bubble wrap. Don't let him get injured. They need him for this France game. Think he's going to be a big impact on this one. The back row, 6, 7, 8, Navidi, Tipperick and Faletau. All 3 of them are having really good tournaments, to be fair. They're all putting a good shift in. There's a lot of very silent work going on between these 3 lads. Tackle rate has been superb. Ball carrying through all 3 has been great. Not as many jackals as I'm used to seeing between Navidi and Tipperick, but I think that's because people have begun to know how dangerous they are in that breakdown area, so I'm sure people are targeting them a bit more, so it's not allowed to get as many jackals. But the tackle rate, Wales are really topping the board in number of tackles made in this tournament, so all 3 of them playing very, very well. Moving into the backs, Gareth Davis will of course retain that scrum half shirt. I didn't know whether Hardy would be able to get back in the team, but I think his injury is a little bit more severe than we first thought, so Gareth Davis will retain scrum half. I'm still waiting to see a game from Gareth Davis where I can say I'm happy with his performance. He seems to be struggling an awful lot. I mean, he did okay in the Italy game. He got the yellow card for Wales by doing the quick tap and go, but other than that I really didn't see an awful lot from him. So hopefully this can be a game he can really get his teeth back into and step back up in. At fly half, Dan Biggar will of course retain that. I think it's become the set strategy now. Dan Biggar on for the first half, maybe 50 minutes. Sheedy to come on in the second half to add an entirely different injection into the game. Thought Dan Biggar's doing well recently. The kicking stat I don't think was 100% against Italy, but it was against England, so definitely looking good in that department. I'm sure Sheedy will come on in that second half and add a real injection of pace and desperation into that Wales team when they need it. Moving further back, Josh Adams will retain that left wing shirt. He's playing good rugby at the minute. They've utilised him an awful lot more than I was expecting in the Italy game. I thought they would let Rhys-Zammit just go wild, but Josh Adams doing well. Unlucky with one of his finishes in his try, got his own arms underneath the ball. Can't afford to be doing that against France, but he's playing good rugby at the minute. It's nice to see Josh Adams at top form, actually doing really well. So nice to see him still in the team. Jonathan Davis at 12 in the inside centre is an interesting choice. I don't know about the rest of you. I haven't seen a super impressive performance from Jonathan Davis. I'm wondering whether the injury that he sustained that took him out of the squad for such a long time has done a lot more damage than people know. To me personally, Halaholo's been doing better than Jonathan Davis, but maybe that's because he only comes on in that second half. It's not Jonathan Davis's usual position. Of course, we get to see him in the outside centre so much. He's trying to learn that position a little bit. I personally would maybe have had Halaholo here rather than Jonathan Davis, but we know the talent Jonathan Davis does have when he can get let loose. He can be a massive danger attacking threat, and also as a defensive captain when he needs to be. He does the work, but currently I think that might be the only real chink in this Wales team at the minute. Looking to his partner in crime, number 13 outside centre, George North, played a great game against Italy. A couple of people will think were annoyed that I didn't pick him for my team of the week. I just thought Henry Slade had a little bit of a better overall performance against the France team for England, but George North playing exceptionally. I think he's really growing into that number 13 shirt. As much as through this tournament, as I've said, I would like to see him on that 14 wing. Rhys-Zammit's doing so well. There's no reason to try and shift about those wings. George North playing very aggressively in that 13 shirt. You know, big ball carrier, big threat, smashing through tackles. I think he's doing really well. Definitely deserves to hang in there. Rhys-Zammit at 14. I think people are having him down potentially player of the tournament worthy. I don't know. I've seen him do some incredibly good work. Of course, he had that try against Italy where he ran the length of the pitch. He had his almost try against England where he beat Johnny May and Anthony Watson to the ball in a 100-metre sprint. He's looking so dangerous. I'm sure he will become a big force in this Wales-France game. And if the Grand Slam is won here, I think a lot of games will go down to credit of Rhys-Zammit doing a bit of a one-man army move and getting a try for Wales in so many games when they were absolutely crucial. Been a real turnaround for this team. Rhys-Zammit absolutely standing out. And to finish it off, Liam Williams in that fullback position. Has played a bit of a 50-50 for me. He's been useful when he needs to be in terms of stopping tries, but some of his tackle work in the backfield I think has been a little bit poor. I just think he runs a little bit too quickly at people in the sidestep, seems to catch him off an awful lot. Of course, he missed out on the Watson try. He had it. I think he also was involved in the Italian try last week as well. Not really in a great position for it. So hopefully he can work on his position a little bit. But of course, Liam Williams will always be a fullback a lot of people would want in their team. So 1 to 15 looking strong as we would expect it to be. This could be a Grand Slam team. They need a big team coming on. I think this is the team to do it. We will quickly look at the substitutions. Elliot D will be coming on as the replacement hooker at some point. I'm sure he will be a little bit annoyed that he couldn't get tries along with Ken Owens in the last game, but I thought he's doing quite well, so no reason to not have him in the team. Nicky Smith is taking over the 17 shirt. Looking forward to seeing Nicky Smith. I'm a big fan of Nicky Smith. He always looks a little bit lost on the pitch, but he does play good rugby, so it's always nice to see him. Leon Brown at 18 will come on. I mean, as a front three replacements, I think they're all very sound to come on at some point. We know how big the front scrum has been, so they definitely want a solid front row to be able to compete. Moving into the lock, we've got Corey Hill, of course, will come on in that second half, I imagine, for Adam Beard and do that replacement. I can't see Alan Wynne coming off unless he's pretty much got a broken leg. I don't see any reason why Alan Wynne-Jones is going to come off. He'll certainly want to play the full 80. James Botham in the 20 shirt will come on. I think so far in this tournament he tends to come on for Navidi more than anyone. And they might have a little switch around, but he's a great replacement to have. He's actually played relatively good rugby, but trying to get into the starting 15 when you've got Navidi, Tipuric and Falatau is a tough call. 21, the replacement so many of us have wanted, Thomas Williams coming back into the team. Really looking forward to seeing him. He didn't get to have the explosive start we expected him to have in the Six Nations, and of course picked up a little injury along the way. So it'll be nice to see him come back into this team. Hopefully in that second half, we know how dangerous he can be. Back of rucks, back of scrums, real sniping runs. Callum Sheedy at 22 will come on for Dan Bigger. We know the impact he has from the bench. And finally, Hala Holo, just to bolster that back line a little bit. So 1 to 23, looking absolutely solid. If any team was going to get a Grand Slam, the performance this team is currently putting in, I think the Wales team has got this team down. I think it's going to be a real close game, and in order to look at just how close we think this could be, we need to check out this France team. So France, of course, lost to England last week in a game I don't think a lot of people saw coming. England really took a little step up in that game. The second half then was absolutely explosive. There was a couple of big calls in that game. You know, we didn't get to see a lot from Ntamak or Baptiste Saran come on at any point. They really tried to hold out that team for the full 80 for some reason. It ended up costing them the game. So I'm sure France won't be too happy about that. They're going to look to bounce back. Looking at their team, there won't be an awful lot of changes from that England game. Cyril Baille, who played well last week, Marchand and Hoas, front three that they've used throughout the tournament, really looking pretty sound. Taufai Fanua taking over at 4 in the lock, who instead of Leroux still hasn't managed to get himself back in the team, but I thought played a really good game against England. Valemsa finishing off the lock department in 5. Dylan Chetin in 6, Olivon in 7, and Gregory Aldrit in 8. I mean, this is just the set France team now. They'll be looking for a better performance. I think 1 to 8 is actually relatively solid. All 8 of these people are absolutely solid in their own positions and doing their own job. I think they'll be very disappointed with that game last week and will be looking to improve. And I'm sure with Sean Edwards sat in that coaching booth, he will be very, very annoyed to have lost that game against England right at the end of that one. So I think they'll be looking to reinforce that. The halfback pair, Dupont and Jalibert, still holding it out. Again, both thought I had good games last week. Jalibert, for me, I think was my team of the week fly half. I thought he was really good, very, very aggressive in the attacking department. Great at kicking as well, doing well. Again, they'll be looking for a bit of revenge from that one. Moving on to the wings. I think they've swapped over the wings from last week. I'm trying to even remember who the wings were, which way around they were. But Damien Penaud going to go on left wing and Teddy Thomas taking the right wing. I believe it was the other way around. I might be wrong on that one last week against England. But both playing well. Penaud, of course, got himself a try. Teddy Thomas was a little quiet. The ball just not coming to his wing an awful lot in that game, but we know how dangerous they can be, as we've seen through the tournament so far. The centre partnership, Ficou and Vakatawa, of course, solid again. Vakatawa looked dangerous. I did wonder if time out of the international side would dampen his spirits a bit, but he looked to be absolutely dangerous with the ball in hand, and I think that could be the letdown for Wales in this game. Wales seem to be struggling with broken play. As soon as that man gets through the defensive line, it all seems to go a little bit wrong. So it's going to be a big game against this France team on those players that can smash through tackles, make the gaps and be able to open up the Wales defence a little bit. And to finish it off at fullback, Bryce Dulin, who I think is superb overall. I think it's got to be between him and Hogg for me for fullback of the tournament. I think they've both played extremely well, but Dulin has been a bit instrumental in holding this France team together. I mean, he's keeping, big names out of this team. Bouthier, you haven't heard an awful lot from in a long time. Dulin is playing really well ever since we saw him in the Autumn Nations Cup. So 1 to 15 looking pretty much identical to what we saw in the England team. It'll just be whether they can hold out against the Wales team with a defence that's looking strong. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there. We'll quickly take a look at the finishers for France. Of course, Camille Chat will come on in that second half. I think he's a great player. It's a bit of a shame that he won't make the starting 15, but of course, Julien Marchand is playing brilliantly at the minute. Gros and Antonio will come on. I didn't even know Antonio was going to be in this team till I just read his name then. I'm a big fan of Antonio. For anyone who's seen my other previews, I really like Antonio. I think he's a great player, just a giant guy. Rabage will come on later in that second half as well. I imagine he might come on for Taufai Fanua later on in that second half, but he was very good in that England game. So, I don't think they'll want to take him off too early. Jalanche will come on at 20. I imagine for Dylan Cretin at some point. Haven't seen a lot from Aldrit going off in a lot of these games. They seem to be pretty standard in wanting to take off the number 6 rather than the number 8. But Gelange can play both, so it's a good move. Baptiste Sarin, we will of course be wanting to see a bit more than we did last week against England. Dupont playing a good game, but you know, you've got to get them on at some point. Romain Ntamack will of course hopefully come on for that French team. Jalibert again played well, but no real time for Ntamack to make a big impact. And then Arthur Vincent will come on. I don't actually know, a couple of French people have been useful in the comments. Can he play inside and outside centre? I've only seen him so far play the outside centre, but I don't think they'd want to take Vakatawa off. They seem more confident in taking Ficou off, so maybe he'll come on at 12, or maybe Vakatawa can switch to 12. Not sure which way around they'll do that, but 1 to 23 looking strong. They'll be annoyed about that England game. To me, this game will be immensely close. Wales, I think, have a very, very good defensive setup for this Six Nations. They know what they're doing. But as I did in the breakdown for the England-Wales game, there is a big tendency in, if someone finds a gap and finds room and breaks through a tackle, that's where Wales begin to fall apart. And for the game that I saw against England, France seemed to have that is specifically their attack, is finding gaps, running play out wide, trying to get people to break through tackles. That is their entire attack basis. So this is just going to come down to whose attack is better than whose defence, I think, for this one. I think it could be insanely close. In terms of a prediction, I don't even know which way this is going to go. Wales tend to step up in the big performance game. A lot of people have got Wales on for the Grand Slam in this one. France are looking dangerous. I wouldn't be surprised if France won. I wouldn't be surprised if Wales won. But I've got to support one team along the way. I, of course, will be sat there in my red jersey watching this game, hoping for the Grand Slam for Wales. I'm gonna give my prediction as, I'm going to say it's going to be a Wales win. They tend to step up in these games, and France's discipline can sometimes let them down, as we saw in the World Cup. I'm going to say Wales to win, but not by a lot. I'm going to say Wales to win by 4. That's going to be my prediction, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Who do you think is going to win? Who are you supporting? What do you think the points difference will be depending on who wins? This is set to be a fantastic end to, well, not the end of the Six Nations, but certainly the end to round 5. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. I am going to be doing these videos for all of the games over this weekend, so make sure you subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date with all the videos. I hope you all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.